Hey, Celeste, look what I just found.
What did you find?
It's a bunch of movies and a podcast.
Oh.
Turns out we used to do one.
Really?
Yes.
Did we? Did we really?
Yeah. Let me see if I can dust off. It's called Calm Talk by Geek Devotions.
Huh.
Let's have some fun with it.
Okay.
What is happening here? Celeste, something's happening on the planet Geekery right this second.
Glix, priority alpha command, open comms, now.
Loading the culture language patches. Loading spiritual applications. Loading grace and hope directives. Comms opening in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, devoted geeks, and welcome to Calm Talk, podcast extension of Geek Devotions, a show from devoted geeks who are devoted to let you know that you're loved. I'm Dallas, and joining me for episode 192 is
Celeste.
And ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while.
It's been a minute. It's been a crazy few months.
And by few, we mean September.
Yeah.
What's the last time we've been on a podcast?
We're sorry. We will endeavor to get better with this podcast. We were doing okay for a while.
Yeah.
And then life got crazy.
Like it does.
And so we appreciate Calm Talk listeners giving us the grace to do that. And we completely understand if you don't. Like if you've stopped listening, we understand.
Yeah. I'm looking back at our podcast feed. And we did pretty good between like June and August.
That's because we had pre-recorded stuff.
Well, we did like what's the Spire Fan podcast? We did Gotham by Gaslight. We did camps. We talked about transition stuff, GeekCon, and then we talked about Dragon Ball Z, which we haven't watched any more Dragon Ball since we did an episode.
We haven't.
It's been busy. But that being said, we have plans.
We do.
For more content.
We do.
We have coming up here in a couple weeks, an interview with who?
A ministry called Crafted for the Call.
Mm-hmm.
And they make merch and rugs and things for ministries just to help promote them. And so they made us a rug of Glix, reached out to us, offered to do it. They also make things that are pretty cool that you can purchase to support them helping ministries get things to them. Yeah.
So they're pretty cool guys. And so we'll have that coming out to you guys in a couple weeks. Also, we have another podcast episode coming out of The Loft, which is kind of an extension of Calm Talk that John does for us. And I have no idea what he's doing. Something with music, obviously.
I do know that he had our friend LJ on there.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a good conversation because those two guys are fun.
They are. They're both great guys. So that being said, today, ladies and gentlemen, as we pick up today's podcast, we are going to be taking a journey through space.
Space.
So for those who don't know, Celeste and I, we do an annual, what do you call it?
Movie marathon?
Movie marathon for our anniversary, basically.
Yes.
And this, as of recording this, we are on our last day of our anniversary vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And Celeste, what did we decide to make our movie marathon?
This year we decided to go with Jason Bourne.
Mm-hmm.
We watched the 3 movies, The Identity, Ultimatum, and Supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
I may have said that in the wrong order. And then we realized that there were 2 other movies called Legacy, and then one just called Jason Bourne.
Right.
And then after we had gotten those movies from GameStop and settled in to watch our 5 movie marathon, which for us is not a stretch. We've done far worse.
Right.
We then realized that there was a TV miniseries.
Yeah.
Done in the 80s. And we went, let's add it.
So we did.
So we did.
We found it. And it was a 2-parter. So it was like 3 hours worth of movie.
Right. Which was actually used to be fairly common. They would make movies for TV and like make it 2 movie lengths worth, but you spread it over a Sunday and Monday.
Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you guys kind of our general thoughts about each movie. This is going to be a long podcast, we promise. But we're going to give you our general thoughts over the movie's plan of action here for today. We're going to do the the trilogy that most people know about.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to take a commercial break, then come back. We're going to talk about the last two of the modern series, and then we're also going to talk about the 1980s Bourne series.
Yep.
So let's jump into it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take you back in time to the year 2002. Celeste, where were you in 2002?
How old was I in 2002? That's the better question. I could tell you where I was based on how old I was. Hang on.
Right. I was in my junior year of high school in 2002. So I was like 17, almost 18.
Which would have made me, what, 13?
14.
Well, you're 4 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was 14, you were 18.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have been 13.
Yeah.
Which means that, 13. We were living in Shreveport.
Mm-hmm.
And
don't dox yourself. This was a rhetorical question for the most part.
Oh, okay. Well, my mom hadn't met my dad yet, so
right. So, did you watch the Bourne series back then?
No.
Oh yeah,
not at all.
So, that's right. So, your first exposure to Bourne was, for what I remember, you tell me, was we were already dating,
mm-hmm.
and you were house sitting, dog sitting for Pastor Scott.
I was. Me and Max watched all 3 of these over like a week. We went through a period where our pastor and his wife were going and doing a lot of things for extended periods of time. And so they would have me come house sit for them and dog sit, sometimes child sit, if their daughters needed to be at school.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was old enough to care for herself. We were just there for legal purposes. The other one was technically old enough there to care for herself, but she was a lot of fun and liked to hang with us. So, and so we would make sure she would get to school. Damara and I would. But this particular time, it was just me and Max.
Yeah.
The dog. And we watched all 3. I want to say over like 3 nights. Probably not the best choice of movies to watch when I'm in a house by myself with a very tiny dog, but it was fun.
Yeah. So, all right, cool. All right. So I watched them way earlier. I think I watched them basically as they came out because I worked at Hollywood Video.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember watching these. I never saw them in theaters, but I'm getting them on DVDs later. So, 2002 was when the first movie came out, and Bourne Identity. Let me pull up the thing about it. Here's the overview per, I don't know, the interwebs. A man salvaged near death from the ocean by an Italian fishing boat. When when he recuperates, the man suffers from total amnesia without identity or background, except for a range of extraordinary talents in fighting, linguistic skills, and self-defense that speak of a dangerous past. He sets out on a desperate search, assisted by the initially rebellious Marie, to discover who he really is and why he's being lethally pursued by assassins. All right, Celeste. What were your thoughts on the Bourne Identity?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was very early 2000s, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It went, for those of you who are trying to figure out what that means, like there was a feel to 2000 cinematography.
It was a lighting thing.
The flashing lights that blurred and moved around.
The shaky cam stuff when he was having flashbacks. I'm like, please don't make me motion sick just because he's having PTSD.
Yes.
That's not kind. But also just kind of the way Marie looked, the way the people were dressed,
right?
Just the general feel of it.
I did feel like I was transported back in time. It's interesting in cinematography and film when you go like, things are definitely just locked into an era with when you look at clothing and filmography and stuff like that. Every film's that way, but I guess it's just interesting because we lived it.
Yes.
And so it's taken us back. Whereas, I think older movies we watch, we're kind of disconnected because we didn't live those moments.
It feels more fictitious. when it's not something that feels familiar.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, just jumping ahead a little bit, watching the TV miniseries from the 80s did not make me think of the 80s necessarily, but it did make me think of Saturday mornings eating popcorn and watching movies with my mom and my grandma.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, so this are our Bourne Identity. Like I said, it was very 80s.
No.
Very 2000s, early 2000s.
Yes.
But at the same time, like I was pretty locked in this movie from the word go.
There was only a few times where I was like, oof, that green screen. Or oof, that was a dummy that they just dropped down that stairwell. I had a realization, though. In one of the scenes, there is a spiral staircase that looks very specific.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, that's been in my nightmares for the last 20 years, and I didn't even know where it came from. Thanks, subconscious.
Yay. So, but I thought it was just interesting, like, the whole ordeal. Like, I remember watching it and going, this guy is looking at everything in the world. And I can imagine just being in that situation where you wake up not knowing who you are, but you have these instincts to do certain things. Like, it was fascinating to watch that take place.
It really was. It's an interesting story to have someone who just by muscle memory knows how to do stuff.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out who they are.
Right. I know people who have certain abilities, and there are things that are just instinctual about them, and they have to be careful with certain things. And so watching this movie, I think about those individuals.
Yes.
And I go, wow, that's
what
crazy.
They would do. Yeah.
So, but it's a wild ride. It locks you in pretty quick. Like,
it does.
There are moments where you're like, okay, it's kind of slow, but there's this tension build up, but it's super action based at the same time.
Yeah, it is. I think the only thing I really had issues with this movie is that it was so much action, but it's also so analytical. Like, I don't come to an action movie to think. I come to watch things blow up and headbutts.
Right.
But they had things blowing up and headbutts. But then there's this also social, like, commentary of things happening and secret shadow government things. And like, I'm like, what the crap? I need a moment to process. But no, something else is blowing up.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Cool beans. All right. Anything else you want to add about this particular one that you liked or didn't like?
No, I'm good.
All right, cool. Let me go to the second one, which was called flash forward to the year 2004. I just graduated high school the year before. And it's called The Bourne Supremacy. And according to the Googles, Jason Bourne is living in India when he is framed by Russian agent Kirill. I don't know what this guy's name is. For the theft of millions from the CIA. Agent K, is what we're going to call him from now on, begins to pursue Bourne, intending to assassinate him. But while Bourne and his girlfriend Marie are on the run, a shot meant for him kills her instead. Vowing revenge, Bourne sets out to prove his innocence and bring the culprits to justice, but he has to evade CIA-headed Pamela Landry, who is convinced he is guilty. Now, for context, the movie ended with Bourne basically telling the CIA, don't come for me, I'm out.
Yeah.
Goodbye. And he has this whole revelation of that he's an assassin, that he did certain things.
He doesn't necessarily remember anything, but he's gotten some information.
Right. He doesn't remember, like, he still has a lot of memory loss taking place.
Yes.
And it was funny because we were watching it, and it's been a long time since I've seen these, but I'm really looking at it going, she's going to die. And sure enough, like in the first, like, 10 minutes, like, gone.
The women in this series do not fare well.
Right. At all.
At all.
Now, I do like the fact that you are set up for this movie from at the end of the last movie. Because at the end of the last movie, there's this board meeting taking place, and the guy who's over the original group of Treadstone, he's like, Treadstone's something we shuttered, but we have this new thing we think it's really getting around. It's called Blackbriar. And so you discover now how deep the rabbit hole is going. and that there was Treadstone was like the base level of this secret organization, or not secret organization, secret training that was really like, it looked like they just tortured people until they submitted into their training. But this was a new level. And so they had new agents that were doing some stuff, and they were coming after Bourne because, or they were framing Bourne because information was getting out about the link between two officials within the organization that were making money off everything. And you were discovering things are getting out of hand.
You're pulling some of Legacy in.
Am I pulling Legacy in?
With that knowledge. We don't know why specifically they're framing Bourne, other than they want him dead.
No, we do.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, Legacy goes. They keep wanting to kill him throughout the entirety of the series because the rabbit hole goes deeper. But we discover that in Legacy, because that's where we discover in not Legacy. In this one is where we discover him killing the people in the hotel.
Oh, that's right. That was the news story in the first movie. Okay. I will say I appreciate, even though it made my brain hurt a little bit, I appreciate all the callbacks to the first movie and how interconnected things were. You can tell that whoever the scriptwriter for these movies were, that they either wrote them all at the same time,
right,
or they paid attention and put small nods to things later in the movie.
Right. Yeah. The one thing I didn't like, there were two things that I didn't really care for. One, there was they tried to make they suggested there was a pass between him and the Nikki, which was a girl that was kind of working the background canon things. They didn't do anything with that throughout the series. Like, it seemed like a one-off thing. Like, they're trying to build like some romantic tension between the two of them,
and they realized it just wasn't it.
They did nothing with that. And then the guy who was the assassin at the beginning that set off everything, randomly you discover he's also like Russian Secret Service. Like, to me, that felt like super left field. Like, why are we doing this?
I don't know. That confused me. I feel like that also might have been they were planning to go a different direction or have a different type of offshoot, and they just didn't.
Oh, maybe.
So maybe they were planning on doing a TV show, or maybe they were planning on doing Legacy sooner, or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they were just trying. And I think it's really like, because we did some digging. Like, there is a book series.
Yes.
But the book series is completely different. Like,
apparently,
like the first movie apparently is loosely based off the book, and everything else is an original screenplay. And so I just don't know where they were going with that, with those two aspects. But the rest of the story itself, I appreciate how it does a great job of integrating back into the original movie. It's a natural continuation. Like, what did it say? It picks up like 6 weeks later or something like that.
2 years.
2 years later. Okay, that's right. That's right. The third movie takes place
6 weeks after the first.
Yeah. But he's just kind of like
second movie.
Right. So but he goes back to basically take out the CIA and tell him I'm done. And because he told him, if you guys come after me, I'm going to take you all out.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what he's doing. And so you have this story with, you have this CI director Landry, who's like trying to bring him in because she thinks the information she's working on, he's the assassin. And then she discovers the connection between that guy and the Russian counterpart, and the money they were making off all this stuff to begin with. So what'd you think of the ending, though? Because the ending was interesting, because he goes back to Russia to apologize.
I appreciated that because it honestly fit in with who they have created Jason Bourne to be. He is somebody who knows how to do all of this stuff, but he doesn't want to. He understands that he was in the wrong, that he was just blindly following orders,
right? And
people were abusing that loyalty. In the beginning of the movie, he says something to the effect of, he remembers every face he's ever killed. He may not remember their name, but he remembers them all.
Right.
And that's a burden he has to carry. And so to me, it kind of plays to the whole people having to deal with the fact of if they've been in the military and they've had to kill people, they have to deal with the ramifications of that, even if it was just, even if it was needed, even if it was something that had to happen.
Yeah. I do appreciate that humanizing aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
where it's that whole PTSD, like you said, just dealing with ramifications of what you've done. And it was stuff that had to be done in the name of the service or whatever's going on. But there is a lasting effect of what he had to walk through.
Right.
And I appreciated them I think that's what makes the movies interesting is it's not just some super soldier out there doing crazy stuff.
Right.
There's a humanized aspect where he's genuinely struggling with things.
Yeah. And it's one of those things of, because like even the particular killing that we're talking about, it was not something that needed to happen for American safety.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that his boss had him do because
they were trying to hide evidence.
Yeah. And so it kind of shows the fact that while having loyalty is good, that it's always a good idea to question things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're in the military, you get your orders, and this is all fictitious,
right.
But it does bring some, if someone tells you to do something, hey, why are we doing that?
Exactly.
What's going on here?
Exactly. And again, he was in a no-win situation, brainwashed and also just bad intel.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I like the ending where he goes back to the daughter of the people he killed in his first mission that were completely off books. It was the cover-up.
Mm-hmm.
So just to give her the truth.
Because it had been framed to make it look like her mother went crazy and killed her father,
right,
and then killed herself. And that was a good thing because now the daughter does not have to live with am I going to lose it?
Mm-hmm.
Is this genetic? Is this something that I'm just going to lose my mind?
Right.
How did my mother change from the woman that I know to be someone who killed my father?
Exactly.
Like all of these questions that would naturally come for this young lady, he has alleviated it.
Yeah, he brought some closure to the situation at hand.
And then also gave her some peace about the fact of they were killed. This is not anything that's going to happen to you.
Right. All right. So the next movie was called Bourne Ultimatum. And for some reason, on my phone, every time I click on one of these movies in Google, it brings up the Spanish name. So it's Ultimato Bourne. I'm not sure why it's giving me in Spanish. Oh my gosh. But Bourne Ultimatum, a former CIA assassin, continues his quest to fill in memory gaps. When a Guardian reporter stumbles onto his trail, the man spies his chance to blow the Blackbriar Black Ops bridge wide open. With some very powerful people intent on keeping their skeletons buried, he is in more danger than ever before, as his former paymasters send a series of elite killers after their reformed ex-colleague. And this came out in 2007. So I was in college at this point.
I had graduated.
Look at you. So
not college, high school.
Right.
Just to be clear.
All right, so this one, I feel like this was more action-based than the other one.
I think so, but I also think it's the culmination of the other two, because he was quite happy to be left alone.
Right.
You did not, if you left him alone, he would leave you alone. He didn't care what you were doing. He did, but he didn't. He didn't care enough to do anything about it.
Right.
And this movie is the one where he cared enough to do something about it.
Right. Exactly. The filling in the gaps aspect was interesting to me. Because you're definitely getting you're getting the beginning of who he is.
Yeah.
And I found that interesting to see that the way they played out is like he made a choice to join this organization. But you realize this organization was super corrupt from the word go.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish they had played more with what actually happened, though. They don't really give you any answers about what kind of there was some sort of drug that was involved. There was some torture that was involved,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't really know what took place. But you do have this interesting, I guess, like it was like the last, hey, I'm definitely doing this,
Mm-hmm.
which was him in the corner. He's sitting in this room, and there's and they're being told, he's basically being told he's got to kill a guy that's got a bag over his head.
Yeah.
He has no idea who he is. He just knows he needs to be done. And I guess it's their testing on, will you just follow commands?
Yeah.
And
it was are you going to be a good soldier?
Yeah. And he's sitting there fighting it for a moment, but he makes a decision. But I wish there was more in this movie about the actual training that he went through.
I think that would be a very different type of movie.
Yeah.
I don't think that it would fit in with the action spycraft thing. I think it would end up being more of a horror movie.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, it would be. Just the flashbacks we did see, it would be kind of a horror movie based.
If it had included more of that, like, I would be intrigued to know, but I also don't know if I would watch it.
Yeah. Now, it should be pointed out that this movie, what's interesting about this movie is that it starts off basically before the second movie ends.
Mm-hmm.
And so because it starts off with some investigation stuff with a whole nother group, and it carries over past obviously where that movie ends.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where it gets interesting to me, is the overlap.
Yes.
This series did an amazing job of callbacks.
Yes.
Constantly. And I think that at the time I didn't realize it as much when I first watched it, because I didn't watch it back to back, but watching them back to back, holy crap. Like, it's a full story.
You can see all of the Easter eggs, all of the world building, all of the everything that was going on when you watch it like this. And this is, I think, why we like to watch series like this, because we catch some of the small things that add to the broader story.
Right.
You know, we watched all 9 and then eventually the 10th of the Fast and the Furious movies, because we wanted to know how they ended up from street racing to going to space. We don't know how to tell you that it makes sense, but it does.
Yep, it does somehow.
But I'm not sure if it would necessarily if we hadn't watched them all one right after the other.
Yeah.
And been able to go, okay, A equals C equals this over here. This is what's happening. Okay, this is connections here.
Right.
Like, not to be the guy with our hands on the walls going aliens, but it's when you binge watch movies, series like this, or series in general like this, you get a broader view of everything, because you don't have to rely on your own memory because you just watched it.
Exactly. That being said, I don't know, like, again, I said that you miss some stuff, but at the same time, I feel like they do a great job of pointing you to the past things.
Yes.
You can jump in and watch this and not have to go, man, I wish I just watched these other ones. Like, you're going to wish you had to, but you follow along pretty well.
It's one of those that it plays well for both audiences. You can just watch it like one a year and you'll be fine. You'll understand. They give you enough breadcrumbs that you get it. But if you watch it back to back, you get such a fuller story.
Yeah, absolutely. So this one, the ending, it ends with him going back to the training ground for Blackbriar and Treadstone and all the other stuff that's taking place. Confronts the mad scientist who did everything to him. Refuses to kill the guy. Agent 2.0, basically the new breed of Treadstone. He spares the guy and he lets him jump. And Matt Damon jumps into the water. He gets shot as he's landing. You're like, did they just kill him at the very end? And you realize, no, he swam away later.
Right.
And that was it. They were done. Finito.
I did appreciate one thing in that scene. And the guy who let him jump, he goes, do you even know why you're supposed to kill me?
Yeah.
Like, he put a seed of doubt in that guy's head to go, I mean, do you really understand what's happening here?
Yeah, he was trying to draw out, hey, look at the situation at hand.
Yeah.
And think about it. So for the original trilogy, what are your thoughts overall? Like, is it a good trilogy to watch?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
It's fun. I won't say it's a dumb action movie because there is a lot to it.
This is a very heady, like you have to think a little bit.
So much thinking. But it also, like, it's just an entertaining story. It's a good story. It's got some good action. There's some headbutts in it. There's a car chase in every movie.
Right. Every movie car chase.
At least one.
Where the cars are utterly destroyed.
And can we just shout out for old cars, because the ones that he was driving were these old clunkers and they just kept going. My dude's driving down a staircase and he's just fine.
Right.
I'm like, you drive a modern car down a staircase, your suspension's going to be shot.
The car will stop moving halfway down.
The car will say, no, thanks. Gravity can take over from here. But yeah, it's entertaining. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So there's some cursing, I think, though.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's definitely not one for kids. I think for teenagers it'll be fine.
Yeah.
So parental discretion advised. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was our thoughts on the original 3. And so we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Bourne Legacy, Jason Bourne, and then the original 1980s Bourne Identity. So we'll catch you guys on the flip side.
They know how to rank any subject. They've got the ability to throw up things on a mountain. No one will ever change their minds. The ranking's right on their side. Go, Rushmore Show. Go, Rushmore Show. Go, Rushmore Show. Where it's your top 4 and nothing more.
This podcast is a proud member of Culture Box. Whether you enjoy geeky reviews, comedy, or original fiction, you can open up the Culture Box and find something excellent for your soul. Point your web browser to culturebox.media.
Are you a Spider-Man fan? Are you looking for a podcast about your favorite webhead that is fun, family-friendly, and leaves you feeling encouraged? Then you need to make sure to check out the brand new podcast of the Geek Devotions Podcast Network, your friendly neighborhood Spider Fan Podcast.
And we are back. I'm not sure who we're placing in that slot today, but whoever they are, we love them. Check them out. They're cool people. We don't advertise people we don't know and love.
No, we don't.
So that's a pretty safe bet. So we're going to be talking about Bourne Legacy now.
Yeah.
Which is the only movie that does not technically have Matt Damon in it.
Yes.
He is in flashbacks.
Yes. Instead, we have Hawkeye.
And Moon Knight.
And Moon Knight.
Briefly. And the girl from Mummy.
Quite the cast. It's called The Bourne Legacy. And the Google description says, when the actions of Jason Bourne spark a fire that threatens to burn down decades of research across a number of secret intelligence agencies, Eric Breyer, Edward Norton, the man who built the programs decades, decides he must sacrifice one of them. Outcome. Aaron Cross, Jeremy Renner, one of Outcome's 6 agents, and research scientist Marta Shearing, played by Rachel Weisz, go on a run when Breyer targets them for termination. But Cross proves to be a far deadlier target than Breyer realizes. Okay, so this one came out in 2012. Mm-hmm. Now, this one is interesting because it's like you said, Jason's not there, but this is when they say Bourne Legacy, this is the impact of what Jason was doing.
Yeah.
This is the impact of, like, this is the ripple effect. And
this is what was happening behind the scenes.
Right. This one, if I remember correctly, it picks up halfway through the third movie. There's references to Landry. It's before Landry.
No, it's halfway through the second movie.
That's right, because Landry is about to go before a committee to testify.
And so
No, that's the third movie.
Is
Landry,
it?
yeah, because remember he got the information about everything she got the documentation and she was faxing it off at the end of the third movie. And
yes.
Yeah. So, but basically, it's before the committee hearing that she was going to have to expose everything, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. They have the research, but they got to burn a program. They got to get rid of all the evidence and try to cool everything down. And you discover there's a ton of programs.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny to me because the program that they decided to burn was something that I had originally went, I wonder if they're doing this with him.
Right.
And they were doing modification, body modification, and mental modification.
Well, genetic modification.
That's a good way to put that.
Yeah, it was, because body modification suggests that they're going there getting them surgeries. And
oh, no.
This was a genetic thing.
It was on the genetic level.
Basically, what was happening was this particular Black Ops, they were giving soldiers 2 different pills. They're using viruses to do it. And what they were doing was enhancing, they're basically adding proteins to their genetics that increase their physical abilities, but also their mental abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And what was his name? What was
Aaron?
Aaron.
Hawkeye's character was Aaron.
Yeah, that's right. Aaron, his character, he's like the only one who survived the mass delete order that took place.
By sheer luck.
Yeah. Yeah, barely surviving. And so he finds one of the doctors, and
who also was the only survivor from the scientists.
That was the crazy thing too, wasn't it? It wasn't just a matter of just deleting the agents. The entire medical team, everyone was being taken out.
Because they knew enough to get people in trouble, even if they didn't know everything.
Right. So everything's being just burned to the ground. And so they're just trying to survive. And they go, I mean, oh my gosh. So I know a lot of people didn't care for this movie.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. A lot of people did not care for this at all.
Why?
I think because it was so different from Jason, from the original trilogy.
I mean,
but I thought this was a great standalone action flick, Bonnie.
Oh, yeah,
because there was
absolutely.
so much happening here.
It absolutely could have been a standalone if they had just shifted the reasoning they were burning the program.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it moved pretty quickly. It was interesting, him trying to figure out the pill situation so he could survive. I thought the story about how basically Aaron's character was an idiot, and his recruiter, just trying to meet quota, lied on the application and said that his IQ was
12 points.
12 points higher, which was the bare minimum
to get in.
to get in. And so when he got chosen, because he was a good soldier for this program, it boosted everything for him. So he was like really, really good. Well, now it was a really interesting conversation about this cognitive decline that takes place, which is this is interesting conversation, because this is what really happens with people with dementia and other things, where there's this sudden decline in the ability to think. I can't think about how terrifying it has to be to suddenly not be able to think.
Well, and to know enough to know you should be able to think.
Mm-hmm.
Like to know that you should be fine.
Yeah.
And you're not.
Yeah.
But you don't know why.
I think that I wish they had played a little bit more with this.
Mm-hmm.
The part of what made the original trilogy so interesting was it was a man who lost his identity.
Mm-hmm.
Thus, hence Bourne Identity. But there was this whole like, man, that's terrifying to go through the world not knowing who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the flip side, here's a man who knows who he is, but he's losing the ability to think and to see clearly. I wish they played more with that, because I think that would have made the story far more impactful.
I think that would have damaged the end results they were wanting, though.
I don't think it would have. I think that we just need a little more wiggle in that space, and I think it would be really fascinating to see it play out. And I say it because they're going to get the pills so he can continue, so they can do what they need to do. What was the pill? So we're going to viral him out, basically, make it a permanent solution for him.
They had discovered a way to make it permanent to where he wouldn't have to keep taking the pills.
Exactly. I wanted to see him lose some cognitive ability a little bit more. The ability to think clearly in the trauma of that.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked to see something played out within that so we can really see the impact of why he's fighting for this. Yeah. That was the one we had a conversation.
Well,
and we had a moment where he kind of pauses for a little bit, but we don't see the gripping impact of that. Whereas in this original trilogy, we saw the impact of the trauma of not knowing who you are.
Well, and at the same time, this also all takes place within a week.
Yeah.
So it's not like he had a ton of time to degrade.
Right.
Down. Like they got him viraled out fairly quickly.
That's true. So, but it was a good movie. This one, more so than the other ones, you really need to pay attention.
Because there are so many callbacks. Like, and they legitimately took clips from the other movies that didn't have Matt Damon in it and used it to explain what was happening.
Yeah, it does. And if you pay attention in those clips, it really frames the time frame of this movie with everything else.
And it helps you understand when this was happening. Like the scene where the guy who went to Landy with information, you see him go off and make a phone call first, and then he goes off and finds her.
Right.
Like it's all happens just within brief, quick moments. And it does such a good job of enhancing the story.
Yeah. It gives it layers in a really interesting way. So that was, I don't know. I enjoyed it. Again, a lot of people didn't care for it because it was just so different, but I thought it was a good movie. All right. So now we go to Jason Bourne. And according to the Googles, and this one, by the way, came out in 2016. Okay. It has been 10 years since Jason Bourne, Matt Damon, walked away from the agency that trained him to become a deadly weapon. Hoping to draw him out from the shadows, CIA Director Robert Dewey assigns hacker and counterinsurgency expert Heather Lee to find him. Lee suspects that former operative Nikki Parsons is also looking for him. As she begins tracking the duo, Bourne finds himself back in action, battling a sinister network that utilizes terror and technology to maintain unchecked power. This is also a conversation about what if the government took over Facebook. But so this one, it starts off really with Nikki hacking the intelligence agency, CIA, getting all the black ops, and you discover that we've gone beyond Touchstone, beyond Blackbriar, beyond Outcome. There are now 10 levels deep of black ops organizations they've done, all linking back to the Touchstone.
Which means that they're all sketchy as all get out. Like, this is not black ops that the appropriate people know about. These are things that they're doing some things that are questionable morals.
Yeah. And man, Matt Damon looked rough in this movie.
I think he was supposed to.
I think so too, but good golly, him and Nikki looked so rough in these movies.
I don't know.
Like it just like the wear and tear on both of those characters.
Well, they're both supposed to have been on the run for 10 years.
I gotcha. But I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying that it shows you like the state of these characters. That being said, man, they killed Nikki quick.
You called it.
She was it was like 10 minutes in again, just
she did her hacking thing and she was done.
Yep. In the hacking thing, she discovered something interesting, which was the recruitment of Bourne. And that it goes deeper and was connected to his father somehow.
I would love to know more about that. Like, I kind of wish that they would do like Bourne Origins or something and start out with his dad.
Yeah.
Like the inception of Treadstone. How did we get to a point of where we felt like we needed to torture our own people?
Right. I kept calling it Touchstone for some reason. Treadstone.
Treadstone.
Yeah, I'm with you. That would be really interesting to see that play out because they touch on a little bit. Basically, it boils down to his dad started the program.
And then when it became what it was, he was like, I can't do this. And so he died.
Yeah, as they're trying to pull in his son to be part of it. And then you discover that the main assassin trying to kill him right now is the one that killed his father.
That felt dumb.
Yeah.
To me. To have the asset be the man who killed his father. Because they had already established that the asset had been burned when Bourne released files the first time.
No.
Yeah.
No. This was completely off. This wasn't even part of that whole situation. This was a whole different file system.
No. When they originally released things and agents were compromised, when Bourne released the files 10 years ago, the asset from this movie
he went underground. That's what it was.
Had to go underground because
that's right.
His cover was blown.
Yeah, that's why it makes sense, though. That's why it makes sense for him to go after Bourne. You said you didn't like that.
I don't like the fact that he is also the same person who killed Bourne's dad.
Why? How does that play into anything?
Because that was so far ahead of it. And also, why? How does that play into anything? It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. He was one of the Black Ops from the beginning of the situation.
I don't know. I didn't like it. It felt like it was an unnecessary connection.
Okay. All right. Well, that's your thing. All right. So that's taking place. The sub story that's taking place, though, where you have Tommy Lee Jones' character is working with basically Zuckerberg to basically create a spy network of everybody's technology. And then he's got this girl who is working under him, but she doesn't like him. And she's helping him to find Bourne, but at the same time, she's trying to get Bourne to take him out. Maybe you caught it and I didn't. I could not get a track on her motivation other than I want to be in charge.
I think that was it.
Is that it?
I think that was it.
I wanted something more.
I know that they hinted at something had happened. And that was why she was so motivated. And I know that she said she went to school with the guy who did the social media, basically their Zuckerberg. But it really just felt like she wanted to be in charge.
Yeah, I didn't care for that.
And she was willing to do whatever she needed to do to get power.
Yeah. The feel of this movie seemed very different. It's like they wanted to capture the original Bourne trilogy. But something about it was just off to me, and I can't put my finger on it. I don't know if it's the cinematography. I don't know if it's the way that they played out the whole third act.
I think it has more to do with the fact of how they were attempting to update it. Because you even see Bourne like looking at stuff going, what? Like the computer hackers. He was never the computer guy. Like the looking at the phone that's ringing and him going, like I think the trying to update it for modern day is what made it not work. Because they were not that they were trying to update the story, but it was almost like they were trying to redo everything.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, again, they were trying to push the story forward a little bit, but
I don't know.
There is something to be said though. Like we had this conversation with Death Note when they put out the new one, and how what locks Death Note into what made it so great, the anime, was that it was locked in a time frame where things really worked, made sense, and you can't tell that same story with modern technology.
You can't.
And there's something about that. And the way that they're trying to push this whole cybersecurity aspect, it really didn't really...
It doesn't really fit with Bourne.
Not the way that we've seen Bourne in the past.
If they had made it to where, I don't know. I don't even know how they could have done it to where they could have updated it and it still felt the same.
Yeah.
I honestly just, like, I liked the movie. It was a fun movie.
Right.
Tommy Lee Jones is hysterical, and I love seeing him as a bad guy because he's just a really good actor.
Right.
Although it was weird seeing him as a bad guy.
Right.
But it just didn't, I don't know. It's good. It's a good movie, but it's not, to me, if you're going to watch the Bourne series, you don't necessarily have to watch that.
Are we, and this is a question for you and also for our audience who's listening, are we entering an era where making good spy movies is going to be difficult because of where we are technologically, like modern era? Like,
I think so.
I can't put my finger on the last real good spy movie that I watched that took place in the modern era. Everything I've watched that was good was kind of time locked in the 80s and 90s and before.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things, because even while we were doing that, while we were watching it, I'm going, they would have found him before 10 years. By 2016, they would have absolutely found him.
Well, I mean, he was off grid, and there's a whole thing, like, he had no technology. I'm not sure how Nikki found him, to be perfectly honest, now that I'm thinking about it.
She knew to search the fights.
But I don't know. There had to been contact with them beforehand.
Yeah, I feel like that it had been indicated because he knew who she was working with.
Right.
So I feel like it had been indicated that they had been in contact. But we live in a day and age where everybody has a cell phone, everybody has a camera, everybody is posting. So you can track people just by Instagram.
Right.
You really can.
Not that Bourne had Instagram.
No, but he could be, it's like, what were we watching? We were watching
Night Agent.
And he was in the back of somebody else's photo.
Mm-hmm.
That's realistic.
Yeah.
Like, the being completely off grid, he would have to have stayed in the desert.
Yeah. It's like the opening scene of Jason Bourne, where, not opening scene, but one of the early scenes where they're in the middle of this riot in Greece.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, all right, everybody run, facial recognition. And they're just scanning everybody's faces until they find them.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm overtly confident that technology exists. We haven't, like, with certain aspects with Google, in our Google Drives, we can actually look up, all right, this person's face and find all the pictures on our album with that person's face.
Yep.
And I don't know, it removes some of the awe of the spycraft of those early movies.
Well, and it also makes it more unrealistic.
Yeah. Well, what do you mean by that?
I mean, again, I think they would have found him before 2016.
I don't think they would have.
And killed him.
Maybe, but I don't think so. Not the way that he was laying underground.
Oh.
But I want to put this question out for our audience who's listening. What was a good spy movie that took place in the modern era that you watched recently? I'm now intrigued and I want to find them. So let me know. But speaking of spy movies that weren't in the modern era, let's take you back in time to 1988, the original Bourne Identity movie that was based off the original 1979 book. Is that right? Was it 1979?
1980. And the TV miniseries, because if you phrase it like that, it describes it better, came out in 88.
Right. So this is the description of it. The Bourne Identity is a 1988 American mystery action thriller miniseries adaptation of Robert Lenham's 1980 novel, The Bourne Identity. The adaptation was written by Carlo Sobieski, directed by Roger Young for Warner Brothers. That tells you nothing at all about what the movie's about. Let me open up the IMDb. Here we go. An injured, unconscious man washes ashore in a small French town. As he recovers, it becomes quite clear someone is trying to kill him. That's descriptive. That works. All right. So let's just talk about this movie. So this movie, like I said, from what we can tell, is based more off the book. And I can testify to the fact, I listened to a few minutes of the original movie, of the original book, and it does seem to follow that closer, which in this one, Bourne, he wakes up like he does in the first Bourne movie that we watched, where he doesn't have an idea of who he is. Mm-hmm. He has amnesia. You have the whole like he's got a bank account.
Microfilm.
Yeah, he has a bank account number in his hip somehow. And he goes on this journey trying to figure everything out. The trick to it though is there's this other actor named Carlos who seems to be in the background making things happen.
This other assassin.
Yeah. And so you're trying to figure out what's going on with all that. So, super 80s.
Super 80s.
Super 80s.
Like I said, it made me think that I should be sitting on the floor drinking Orange Crush and eating popcorn.
Right.
And potentially taking a nap. Like, it was a good movie, but it was much more actiony.
Yeah.
It was less actiony.
Yeah. It was more of a spy thriller.
Yes. You have the tension, you have the intensity, you have the action, because there's definitely shooting and running and trying to survive, but it's not as like things are not exploding.
Right. Exactly. I mean, when the action hits, it's pretty good action actually. Like,
and it was. This was not a bad movie, but it definitely was not a modern action movie.
No, not at all. I did appreciate the spycraft that took place in it, where he's trying to figure out some stuff. It was grounded again in 80s era. And so there were certain aspects where he's having to figure out some stuff. There's things that made sense. If you remember, oh, right, they don't have modern technology just to do certain things right away. Like one of the differences was like in the scene in the original movie in the 2000s movie where he goes to the bank, they had to like verify things. And so he has to put his hand on a scanner and it identifies what's what I'm looking for? It proves his identity.
Yes.
In this one, he has to write down a secret code that he found in his hip, like you do. And they had to take it off, do it. But as they're proving the identity, there's a person making a phone call saying, hey, we got Bourne. They're locked into their time frame and it works well. And as long as you remember this time frame, it I think works out. This Bourne, though, we talked about this. He's a bit more of a jerk in the 80s.
Yeah, I would have punched him. Like the female character that he was supposed to be romantically involved in, I'm like, honey, he is nothing but a walking red flag. Run.
But that was so like storytelling of the 80s and 90s and even the 70s, where you have like the suave debonair but also harsh man that women just kind of swoon over eventually. I mean, that was your Bond. That was the
Bond had more charisma than this guy,
probably, but that was what you had back then. That's the way they played characters.
It's fair.
So again,
annoying but fair.
Annoying, yeah. But again, it's super time. Like you got to remember what era we're doing this stuff in order to catch certain aspects of it.
I don't think I would have watched a second and third movie with this guy.
Oh yeah.
Well, they wrapped up the story.
Well, as far as we know.
Yes.
Because remember the first movie that we saw, it felt like it was wrapped up. It was done.
Yeah. Yeah. But also, he just wasn't as likable. Like, I would probably watch it, but I wouldn't, like, seek out to watch it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I got you. But, I mean, it made sense. And there are a lot of interesting ways that the modern era adapted and changed things from this one. Like Treadstone in the modern era, it's this black ops subsection that is hidden from everybody, and it's obviously very nefarious. This was started by an old man in his house with basically the maid. and it was just
but it
very
was
different.
Also very well known. In this, Treadstone is not this secret organization that no one knows about. The government knows about it. The public doesn't know about it, but the government knows about it. They know that this is an operation that was happening.
The government knew about Treadstone, the modern ones, but not as much as they do in the original one. Because in the original one, like there was the French knew about Treadstone. Like there were in the modern era, Treadstone was like it's only known by a few people in the government, and
Yes.
that's it. And so,
Which is problematic.
so, but it was interesting going back to watch it because it was similar enough where you're like, oh wow, that's interesting connections between the two, but different enough where, I mean, it's a different story.
It really is. And it was watching them this close together. I wasn't bored. Like, because it was so different.
Mm-hmm. So, again, the storytelling was super 80s.
Super 80s.
Storytelling.
It was just missing Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Which helped. And so I'll say this, because I know that I'm more of an 80s kid than you were, obviously. It felt like the 80s in a lot of scenes. Like,
did it?
like the shoulder pads that women wear and stuff like that. Like, I'm having vivid
Her hairstyle.
I was having vivid flashbacks to my mom getting dressed and like going to like fancy things or going to like events where there were a lot of adults around and going, this is what people wore. Like, I was having some vivid flashbacks during some of these scenes. And so it was pretty time locked.
Well, that's not a bad thing.
No, and I'm not saying it is a bad thing, but again, I don't know, something about that world. It helped with the spycraft aspect of things.
Right. Well, because you didn't have like the whole bank scene there where she was going and trying to go in and get his money.
Right.
In the new movie, she's like, I just told him I was your assistant.
Yeah.
In this one, they're calling back and forth on payphones.
Right.
I'm like, the most unrealistic part about this is that no one was sitting at the payphone going, hey, I need to make a call.
Yep. That's true. I don't know. It was interesting to see this play out. Now, you could obviously tell this was a TV movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's super like.
Which I kind of think helped.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, I think if this had been big budget, it wouldn't have been as entertaining.
I can see that.
It plays well with what the story they were telling because there's not a lot of big budget stuff going on.
Yeah, definitely. So, but even though it was TV, it was entertaining.
Yeah.
Like, I was pretty locked into the whole thing throughout the entirety of it. Again, the ending was very different. Drastically different. You find out that the director of Treadstone is actually like the surrogate father to Jason, which you find out, this is a whole other thing. Jason's identity, his real name is David Webb, which we find out also in the modern era, but his name is Jason because there was a legitimate stone cold assassin named Jason Bourne that Treadstone originally recruited, but they couldn't control.
So they killed him.
They killed him after they gave David plastic surgery and several things to make him look like him. And then he took the identity of Jason Bourne and went and did those things, all for the purpose of trying to get another assassin named Carlos out in the open so they could take him out.
Because he was becoming a problem.
Yes. So, interesting storytelling.
It really was.
So, all right. Anything else you want to add to this conversation?
I think we're good.
All right. So, out of all of them, what do you think was your favorite?
Probably the third and the fourth one.
Oh, so Ultimatum and Legacy.
Because they play well together and they tell a bigger story.
Yeah.
You can't watch just Ultimatum, so you have to watch the other two. But I think that those are my favorites because things are coming to an end. You're getting more information, and then it plays into the, okay, well, Jason Bourne's doing this, but this is what was happening in the background.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to go with you on that. And it's more, I feel like you got to take the 2000 trilogy in its totality.
Yeah, you kind of have to watch them all three.
Because it tells a really great story.
You could watch the first one and be fine.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But if you're going to watch the second one, you have to watch all three.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The original 80s one was interesting to watch. I'm not sure it's like one of those ones, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. It felt the most spycrafty of them all, which I enjoyed that aspect of it. So But we want to hear from you, Devoted Geeks. Did you guys watch these series? Did you like any of these movies? Did you not like them? Let us know. Reach out to us. Obviously, you guys can leave comments on the YouTube video if you're listening to us on YouTube. If you want to reach out to us, check it out on all of our social media networks. Just look for Geek Devotions or hit up our Discord channel.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
We're in Discord.
Yep. All right, Celeste. Anything else we need to mention or talk about real quick with the people listening?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Do we shout out our new patrons?
We did not.
Do we do that on podcast?
Well, we can.
But do we?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have a new patron.
We do.
Our new patron is Brianna Shegley.
Hello, Brianna. I'm glad to have you here.
We hope we're not mispronouncing your last name.
I feel really bad if we are.
Please let us know, and we will fix it.
Yes, please do. Reach out to us on all of our social media platforms. We want to say this. Thank you to all of our patrons.
Yes.
For supporting us financially, helping us do what we do. You guys help to provide this podcast platform that we use. We are going to be using more. You guys help provide for our website. You guys help provide for things like going to cons and stuff like that, which some people have asked. We would like to go to GeekCon, but as of yet, we've gotten no information about tables or anything like that. Hopefully information comes about that soon enough where we can try to make plans, but as of right now, we don't know what's happening with that. But we do want to go to other cons, and so be praying for us to be able to have those opportunities take place.
Yeah.
So, all right, Celeste, will you want to close it down?
Sure. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Com Talk today. If you have loved this episode, head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify to rate and leave a review. It is very much appreciated. So until next time, stay devoted.
Peace and love.